The desert stretches endlessly under a soft, amber glow as the sun sets, painting the sands with shadows that shift slowly, almost imperceptibly. Amid this vast expanse rise the pyramids of Giza, monumental and enigmatic, standing like sentinels of a past that continues to whisper through time. Their sheer size and precision provoke awe, yet they also invite deep curiosity. How did ancient Egyptians, using tools we consider primitive, build such perfectly aligned and massive structures? As we contemplate their existence, another question quietly emerges, one that sits at the edge of accepted history. Could these pyramids, so meticulously designed, actually be the remnants of a civilization older than the dynasties we know? This is the tension that draws us into the story, the delicate balance between wonder and mystery, between what we know and what we can only imagine. History, as we have learned it, is full of certainties framed in dates, dynasties, and discoveries. Yet the pyramids seem to defy some of these certainties. Every block, every chamber, every alignment toward the stars suggests knowledge, skill, and planning of a magnitude that has fueled theories for centuries. Some of these ideas, once dismissed as fanciful, now invite us to reconsider our assumptions about human history and technological advancement. In exploring the possibility of unknown civilizations influencing or initiating pyramid construction, we step into a quiet space where myth and fact intertwine. This is not a space of loud proclamations or sudden revelations, but a slow, meditative journey, a gentle invitation to consider that history may be far richer and more layered than the textbooks suggest. The desert, the stones, and the stars together form a calm, reflective backdrop for this exploration, setting the stage for a story that unfolds at the intersection of mystery and history. The origins of the pyramids have long been attributed to the ingenuity of Egyptian pharaohs, their architects, and thousands of laborers, yet closer examination reveals details that do not entirely align with conventional narratives. The precision of the stonework, the enormous scale of the blocks, and the alignment with celestial bodies hint at techniques and knowledge that appear remarkably advanced for their time. Some scholars suggest that the Egyptians may have inherited knowledge from earlier builders, civilizations that left no written record, but whose influence is embedded in the very structure of these monuments. This idea, though controversial, provides a rich space for reflection, allowing us to consider the possibility that history is not simply a linear progression, but a tapestry woven from layers of forgotten ingenuity. The question becomes more compelling when we consider the surrounding landscape. The plateau of Giza, carefully chosen for its stability, seems to reflect planning that stretches beyond a single dynasty. Nearby, smaller pyramids and structures hint at experimentation, development, and perhaps even a continuity of construction methods that span centuries. Even the myths and oral traditions of ancient Egypt suggest a memory of times before the pharaohs, eras when gods and semi-divine beings shaped the land and taught humans secret knowledge. By combining archaeology, astronomy, and mythology, we begin to see a pattern. The pyramids are not only monuments to Egyptian rulers, but may also be echoes of something far older, a foundation laid by hands and minds we can no longer name. In this quiet reflection, the stage is set for a journey that gently unfolds between history and mystery, guiding the listener to wonder about what preceded even the earliest known civilization on the Nile. One of the most astonishing aspects of the pyramids is the sheer precision with which they were constructed. From the outside, they rise like perfect geometric forms, their sides straight and their angles nearly flawless. Even small imperfections are hard to detect, and the alignment of the Great Pyramid with the cardinal points is so precise that modern engineers and astronomers still marvel at it. The north-south axis, in particular, deviates by only a tiny fraction of a degree, a level of accuracy that is remarkable even today, with our advanced tools and technology. The stones themselves are another source of wonder, some weighing multiple tons, yet cut and placed with such care that the joints between them are almost invisible. These feats are a testament to human skill and determination, but they also raise quiet, persistent questions. How were such precise measurements achieved, and could they have been accomplished with the tools and knowledge historically attributed to the Egyptians? Ancient texts and modern studies provide clues, yet the answers are not always straightforward. It is known that the Egyptians had access to basic measuring instruments, ropes, plumb lines, and leveling tools, which they may have used to guide construction. But even when we consider these instruments, the precision seems extraordinary, particularly for structures of such immense scale. The Great Pyramid, for example, consists of over 2 million stone blocks, yet the error in alignment across its base is less than a fraction of a degree. How could thousands of individual stones, each quarried and transported over long distances, be positioned with such meticulous accuracy? The sheer coordination, planning, and labor required is mind-boggling. And when viewed in the context of a civilization without cranes, pulleys, or modern machinery, the achievement borders on the miraculous. The craftsmanship of the stonework adds another layer to the puzzle. Some stones are so finely cut that not even a razor blade can fit between them. Certain interior chambers contain granite blocks quarried hundreds of miles away, yet they were transported, shaped, and installed with care so precise it is difficult to imagine. Scholars have noted that the surfaces are remarkably smooth, sometimes polished, and that some blocks were carved to interlock almost perfectly with neighboring stones, creating a seamless, stable structure that has endured for thousands of years. Every line, every angle, every joint seems intentional, almost as if guided by knowledge that is not fully explained by our current understanding of ancient Egyptian engineering. The question lingers, softly but persistently. Could such skill have been achieved purely through trial, practice, and ingenuity, or is there a possibility of techniques, knowledge, or influences lost to history? The alignment of the pyramids with celestial bodies deepens the mystery further. Many researchers have pointed out that the Great Pyramid's orientation corresponds closely with the North Star, while its dimensions and layout may mirror constellations such as Orion. Ancient Egyptians were skilled astronomers, and the stars held profound symbolic meaning, connected to gods, myths, and the journey of the soul. Yet the level of astronomical precision observed in the pyramid's placement is striking, especially given the centuries that separate the construction from modern calculations. Aligning massive structures to the heavens with such accuracy is a task that challenges even contemporary builders. The possibility that the Egyptians achieved this purely through observation of the night sky and careful calculation is impressive, yet it also invites curiosity. What knowledge might have been passed down, forgotten, or obscured that allowed them to reach such heights of precision? Beyond the physical measurements, the scale of the endeavor itself is a marvel. The logistics required to organize tens of thousands of laborers, transport enormous stones, and maintain accuracy across a sprawling construction site would have been overwhelming by any standard. Consider that the Great Pyramid originally rose to a height of over 480 feet, its base covering more than 13 acres, and yet it was completed in a matter of decades. Coordinating such a project without modern tools or machinery, while ensuring the final product maintains structural integrity and precise alignment, speaks to an extraordinary level of planning, expertise, and perhaps even inspiration that transcends our conventional understanding. Every movement, every calculation, every adjustment would have had to be meticulously accounted for, leaving almost no room for error. And yet, when we observe the completed structure, it appears flawless, as though the builders possessed knowledge that was both practical and almost intuitive. The internal layout of the pyramids adds further layers of intrigue. Hidden chambers, passageways, and corridors are designed with remarkable geometric and spatial awareness, creating spaces that are both functional and symbolic. Some passages are aligned to specific stars or astronomical events, suggesting a sophistication in both design and intent that is astonishing. The precision of these internal constructions implies a level of surveying, measurement, and planning that is difficult to reconcile fully with the tools described in historical accounts. Scholars continue to debate how such architectural feats could have been achieved with such consistency and accuracy, especially in the absence of advanced instruments. These debates highlight a tension between what is documented and what seems almost beyond human capability, offering a quiet invitation to wonder and explore possibilities that lie beyond conventional explanations. Even today, when engineers, architects, and historians attempt to replicate aspects of the pyramid's construction, they encounter challenges that reveal just how extraordinary the original accomplishments were. Modern experiments with stone-moving techniques, ramps, and lifting devices demonstrate the immense effort required, yet the precision of the actual pyramids still exceeds expectations. Some theorists suggest that certain methods or knowledge may have been lost to time, that the Egyptians perhaps inherited techniques from earlier civilizations, or that they employed an understanding of physics and geometry that has not been fully captured by contemporary study. These ideas, while speculative, underscore the depth of the mystery, bridging the gap between what we can measure, observe, and understand, and what remains elusive. In contemplating the puzzle of the pyramid's precision, it is essential to approach the subject with both admiration and curiosity. The known builders, ancient Egyptians, demonstrated ingenuity, organization, and skill of the highest order. Yet the subtle anomalies, the extraordinary alignments, and the seemingly impossible precision invite us to consider the boundaries of human capability and the potential for forgotten knowledge. It is this delicate balance between the documented and the mysterious, the light of recorded history and the shadows of possibility, that forms the heartbeat of the story. The pyramids, in their silent grandeur, continue to speak across the millennia, offering both answers and questions, inviting us to marvel and to wonder, all within the quiet rhythm of time. As we move forward in this exploration, the technical marvels of the pyramids will guide us deeper into the layers of history and mystery, revealing that precision and skill may be only one aspect of a far more enigmatic narrative. These stones, carefully cut and aligned, are markers of human ambition, yes, but also perhaps echoes of knowledge, effort, or civilizations that existed long before the pharaohs etched their names into history. In the stillness of the desert, the puzzle remains, waiting quietly for those who seek not just to see, but to imagine, to question, and to drift into the vast landscape of ancient mystery. Beneath the grandeur of the pyramids lies a secret that few consider, a subtle narrative written not in ink or stone, but in the very geology of the structures themselves. The limestone blocks, the granite pillars, and the mortar that binds them together are more than construction materials. They're echoes of time, each layer recording a history that predates the reign of the pharaohs. Geologists have long studied these stones, noting their composition, their origins, and a remarkable consistency in their quality. Some limestone used in the Great Pyramid, for example, was quarried locally from the Giza Plateau, yet others, particularly the denser granite used in the King's Chamber, were transported from Aswan, more than 500 miles away. The very journey of these stones, their selection, their shaping, and their placement tells a story of effort, planning, and knowledge, but it also hints at timelines that stretch further back than commonly acknowledged. What is particularly fascinating is that some of these stones appear to contain natural formations or fossils that suggest they are far older than the construction of the pyramids themselves. Certain layers of limestone contain fossilized remains of marine life, indicating that the stone was once part of an ancient seabed formed millions of years before human civilization emerged. The Egyptians, of course, would not have been concerned with the deep history of the stones themselves, focusing instead on their size, durability, and workability. Yet from modern perspective, this raises a profound reflection. The material of the pyramids carries within it a record of time so vast that human history is barely a blink in comparison. Each block is, in a sense, a messenger from the distant past, connecting the present with epochs that long predate written records. Some researchers have taken this observation further, noting that certain blocks appear to have been cut or shaped in ways that suggest remarkable understanding of stone mechanics. While the Egyptians are credited with the shaping of these materials, anomalies in the texture and where patterns of some stones raise questions about whether they were entirely worked during the dynastic period or whether some blocks might have been repurposed from earlier constructions. These subtle hints do not discredit the achievements of ancient Egypt, but they do introduce the possibility of continuity in human, or perhaps pre-human, activity that is far older than the pyramids themselves. In this way, geology itself becomes a bridge between the known and the unknown, a quiet testimony to the depths of time that lie beneath human memory. The transportation of granite from Aswan adds another layer to this contemplation. Moving stones that weigh tens of tons across hundreds of miles, without modern machinery, was an extraordinary feat of engineering. Scholars have suggested that the stones were floated along the Nile during the inundation season, using barges and skilled labor. Yet even with this plausible explanation, the precision with which these stones were then cut, leveled, and fitted into the pyramid structure remains astonishing. Some granite blocks display remarkably smooth surfaces and exact angles, suggesting techniques that are not fully understood, even today. The combination of massive size, precise placement, and enduring stability continues to challenge engineers and geologists alike, hinting at knowledge that may have been lost over time. Geological studies also reveal that the pyramids themselves are constructed on a foundation of bedrock that was carefully leveled, cut, and in some cases slightly modified to accommodate the weight and placement of the stones. This deliberate preparation indicates not only planning and foresight, but also a deep interaction with the land itself. The builders had to understand the properties of the rock beneath them, anticipating how it would bear the weight of millions of tons of stone for millennia. The very choice of location, the Giza Plateau, was no accident. Its solid limestone base, combined with the natural topography, provided an ideal foundation for structures designed to last, a choice informed by empirical knowledge passed down through generations. Yet the stones themselves, formed in epochs far beyond human reckoning, add a layer of mystery to the narrative. The material predates the civilization, and yet it became the medium through which humanity would express permanence and ambition. Some scholars have speculated that the unusual density and durability of certain pyramid stones might have been intentionally selected to convey not just physical strength, but symbolic meaning. Dense, long-lasting stones could be seen as metaphors for eternity, a reflection of the Egyptians' desire to achieve permanence in both life and the afterlife. This blending of physical necessity and symbolic intent demonstrates the Egyptians' remarkable ability to intertwine material science, practical engineering, and philosophical vision. Yet, amid this understanding, subtle anomalies persist, stones whose properties, placement, or where suggest techniques or knowledge that remain unaccounted for in historical records. These anomalies provide fertile ground for speculation, gently inviting the mind to consider the possibility of influences, knowledge, or even civilizations that existed prior to what we conventionally understand as the birth of dynastic Egypt. The notion of time in this context is humbling. While humans often measure history in centuries or millennia, the stones of the pyramids remind us of geological time, measured in millions of years. The fossilized remains within the limestone, the compacted minerals of granite, and the natural stratification of the plateau itself speak to a world that existed long before human memory, long before kings and pharaohs, and even long before civilization as we know it. Standing before the pyramids, one is struck by a sense of continuity, a quiet reminder that humanity is but one chapter in a story that began far earlier, written in the language of stone and sediment, carried forward by hands that sought to leave a mark upon the ages. Yet the mystery deepens when we consider the possibility that some stones, particularly those that seem anomalously cut or unusually shaped, may have been reused from earlier structures. This hypothesis suggests a continuity in building knowledge that could extend further back than the traditional Egyptian timeline, hinting at a civilization that came before, one whose traces were absorbed, repurposed, or perhaps forgotten entirely. While mainstream archaeology often cautions against such speculation, the geological evidence itself is undeniable. The stones existed before they were assembled into the pyramids. This opens a quiet door to the imagination, allowing for the possibility of human or pre-human activity in times so remote that records have vanished and only subtle markers remain. As we contemplate these geological whispers, we begin to perceive the pyramids not merely as monuments to ancient Egypt, but as vessels of time itself. They connect the fleeting span of human history to the vast, slow rhythm of the earth, and in doing so, they hint at questions that remain unanswered. Beyond the stones themselves, the story of the pyramids is interwoven with fragments of written history, maps, and texts that hint at civilizations and knowledge that may have existed long before the age of the pharaohs. Ancient records, though incomplete, provide glimpses into a world that has largely been forgotten, a world that stretches beyond the neatly ordered dynasties and tombs. Some of these texts were inscribed on papyrus, others etched into stone, and still others passed down orally through generations. They speak of lands lost to time, of rulers and peoples whose names have vanished from memory, and of wisdom preserved only in fleeting fragments. As we explore these sources, a picture emerges that is at once tantalizing and elusive, inviting curiosity without demanding certainty. One of the most intriguing aspects of these ancient records is their occasional references to people, places, or events that do not align with a well-documented timeline of Egyptian civilization. Some texts describe structures older than the known pyramids, monuments built in remote locations, or mysterious civilizations whose knowledge seems advanced beyond their apparent era. While mainstream scholarship often interprets these accounts as myth or allegory, their existence raises the question of whether they contain kernels of truth, echoes of forgotten civilizations preserved in stories, symbols, or cryptic notations. The contrast between the clearly documented history of the pharaohs and these shadowy, partially understood texts creates a space in which the imagination can drift, considering possibilities that remain unverified but compelling. Maps provide another layer of mystery. Certain maps, created in antiquity, depict landscapes that do not entirely match the geography known at the time. Some show coastlines, rivers, or mountain ranges that suggest a knowledge of regions lost to erosion, flooding, or geological change. Others mark locations of structures or cities that have yet to be discovered or may have vanished entirely. These maps, often overlooked or dismissed by mainstream historians, hint at a broader understanding of the world than one might expect from civilizations thought to be confined along the Nile. They offer a whisper of the unknown, a faint trail leading toward the possibility of civilizations or knowledge that existed prior to, or alongside, the Egyptians, now lost beneath the sands or submerged beneath the sea. The role of priests, scribes, and scholars in preserving these texts is central to understanding their significance. In ancient Egypt, knowledge was meticulously recorded, safeguarded, and transmitted within carefully controlled channels. Religious and ceremonial writings, astronomical observations, and historical records were all part of a system designed to maintain continuity across generations. Yet even within this ordered framework, hints of earlier knowledge occasionally surface, preserved in allegories, myths, or obscure references. Some texts suggest that the Egyptians themselves may have inherited knowledge from older peoples, integrating it into their own culture while attributing it to divine or mystical sources. These faint traces, though indirect, add depth to the story, bridging the known history with the shadows of what came before. Oral traditions play a complementary role. Stories passed down across generations, from families, priests, or local communities, often contain details that are absent from formal records. While these tales may be embellished or symbolic, they sometimes preserve fragments of real events, ancient constructions, or lost technologies. In some regions of Egypt, local legends speak of builders whose skills seemed extraordinary, whose understanding of the heavens and the earth surpassed what might be expected. These accounts, though subtle and easily overlooked, create a sense of continuity with the past, suggesting that memory, in forms both written and spoken, can survive even when physical evidence fades. They act as a bridge between tangible archaeological findings and the more enigmatic whispers of history, keeping the imagination engaged in quiet wonder. The interplay between written texts, maps, and oral histories encourages us to consider the broader context of human knowledge. It is tempting to view history as linear, neatly divided into dynasties, empires, and civilizations. Yet these records suggest that human activity, understanding, and innovation are far more complex and layered. Perhaps civilizations arose, flourished, and faded long before the pharaoh's time, leaving traces in stone, papyrus, or memory. Perhaps knowledge was transferred, adapted, or obscured as societies evolved, creating gaps that challenge historians and intrigue dreamers alike. These possibilities do not diminish the achievements of ancient Egypt. Rather, they enhance the mystery, reminding us that the story of humanity is far richer and more intricate than any single record can fully convey. Some scholars point to specific texts that contain cryptic references to advanced techniques, architectural methods, or celestial observations that predate Egypt's most famous monuments. Though interpretations vary widely, these passages invite careful contemplation. Could the Egyptians have been the recipients of knowledge developed by earlier peoples? Were there forgotten schools of thought, workshops of builders, or centers of learning whose influence survives only in fragments? The questions themselves, gently posed, stir curiosity and create a reflective atmosphere, allowing the mind to wander through possibilities without demanding immediate answers. It is this balance between recorded history and the allure of the unknown that forms the foundation of our exploration. Maps and texts are also fascinating because they reflect the way ancient peoples conceptualized their world. Boundaries were fluid, cities rose and fell, and the land itself shifted with time and climate. Some ancient maps show remarkable accuracy, implying careful observation and understanding, even of regions beyond direct experience. Others depict locations of sacred or monumental structures that no longer exist, hinting at earlier civilizations or forgotten builders. Between the well-documented era of the pharaohs and the whispers of forgotten civilizations lies a span of time often referred to as the silent centuries. These are the gaps in history, periods where records are scarce, fragmented, or entirely absent, leaving space for speculation, wonder, and quiet contemplation. The desert, with its shifting sands and relentless sun, has preserved much of what we know, but it has also eroded or buried countless traces of human activity, subtle hints of civilizations that rose and fell without leaving enduring monuments. It is in these silent centuries that the imagination begins to wander, filling the spaces between the known and the unknown with possibilities, echoes of cultures and knowledge that have vanished into obscurity. Archaeologists and historians often grapple with these gaps, trying to piece together timelines from limited artifacts, inscriptions, or geological clues. In some cases, evidence is tantalizingly close: a fragment of pottery, a stone tool, or the faint outline of a structure just beneath the sand. In other cases, the silence is complete, leaving only questions. What societies may have existed before the pharaohs? What knowledge might they have possessed? And how could it have influenced the civilizations that followed? These questions are rarely answered with certainty, yet their very presence deepens the mystery, inviting patience, reflection, and gentle curiosity. The silent centuries are not empty. They're a space of potential, a quiet expanse in which history itself seems to breathe slowly and deliberately, waiting to reveal its secrets to those who listen. The absence of records can be as telling as their presence. When we consider the scale and sophistication of the pyramids, the precision of their construction, and the alignment of their stones with celestial bodies, it is natural to wonder how such knowledge could appear seemingly overnight in human history. The pharaohs inherited certain skills, traditions, and beliefs but some aspects of their architectural and mathematical prowess remain difficult to explain solely through incremental development. Could there have been societies before them, now lost, whose contributions were absorbed into the Egyptian narrative? Might some techniques, tools, or insights have been passed down, quietly shaping what we see as uniquely Egyptian achievements? The silent centuries encourage us to ask these questions softly, allowing the mind to consider possibilities without forcing conclusions. Geological and archaeological clues hint at human activity in these gaps, often in subtle ways. Structures buried beneath sediment, artifacts found far from known settlements, and anomalies in construction or material sourcing suggest that human innovation was present long before the pharaoh's era. Some stones used in the pyramids, for example, appear to have been quarried or shaped with a level of precision that predates recorded Egyptian methods. Tools or methods required for such work may have existed in previous eras, now largely forgotten, leaving behind only the monuments that endure. These silent centuries are, in essence, a canvas upon which fragments of knowledge, culture, and skill can appear and disappear, creating a story that is as much about absence as presence, as much about mystery as certainty. The gaps in written history are mirrored by gaps in oral traditions and mythologies. Across the region, tales have been passed down that speak of ancient builders, mysterious lands, and structures older than the recognized timeline of Egyptian civilization. These stories, though often symbolic or allegorical, carry echoes of events, people, or knowledge that might otherwise have been lost. When examined carefully, patterns emerge, patterns that suggest continuity, influence, and the slow transmission of knowledge across generations. The silent centuries are, in this sense, not entirely empty. They are filled with resonance, with the faint hum of ideas, techniques, and beliefs waiting to be rediscovered or reinterpreted by those attuned to their subtle signals. Even the monuments themselves hint at these missing centuries. Anomalies in construction, irregularities in stone placement, or evidence of repairs and modifications suggest layers of history that predate the visible dynastic structures. Some scholars have proposed that parts of the pyramids or surrounding complexes may have incorporated materials or techniques from earlier periods, perhaps even from civilizations that predate the Egyptian record entirely. While these ideas remain speculative, they're supported by the physical evidence and by the unusual precision and complexity of certain structures. The silent centuries, then, become a realm of possibility, a space where the known meets the unknown, where questions linger gently, inviting reflection rather than demanding answers. The concept of lost knowledge during these centuries is particularly intriguing. Across human history, innovations, techniques, and insights have often been lost, only to be rediscovered generations later. In some cases, environmental changes, migration, or societal collapse may erase entire cultural traditions, leaving only fragments for later civilizations to inherit. The pyramids, with their extraordinary engineering, may represent a point where such knowledge converged, synthesized from both what was known in Egypt and what might have been preserved or adapted from prior civilizations. The silent centuries provide a context for this convergence, a bridge between the origins of human ingenuity and its remarkable expression in the monuments we admire today. There's also a quiet philosophical element to these gaps. Time itself seems to slow when we consider what is missing, and in the stillness of reflection, one begins to appreciate the enormity of human history in relation to geological and cosmic time. The silent centuries remind us that the story of humanity is not linear or complete, but layered, with some chapters deliberately hidden, some lost to accident, and others perhaps intentionally obscured. It is in this space that curiosity, imagination, and wonder can flourish, allowing us to contemplate civilizations, innovations, and mysteries that may have existed long before the pharaohs walked the earth. In approaching these centuries, it is important to maintain a sense of calm and contemplation. There is no rush to fill the gaps with speculation. The silence itself is meaningful. It is a gentle invitation to observe, to wonder, and to consider the possibilities that lie beyond our immediate understanding. The pyramids, rising majestically from the desert, serve as markers along this path, guiding us from recorded history into the quiet expanse of the unknown. They remind us that even in the absence of concrete evidence, there is a story waiting to be imagined, a narrative that stretches across millennia, linking the known with the mysterious. Ultimately, the silent centuries are not merely periods of absence. They are a canvas for reflection, curiosity, and the recognition that human history is far more complex than any single record can convey. They hold the possibility of forgotten civilizations, lost knowledge, and ideas that may have influenced the course of history in ways we are only beginning to understand. As we move through this space of quiet contemplation, the pyramids stand as monuments not only to the Egyptians who built them, but also to the mysteries that preceded them, to the invisible hands and minds whose traces may still linger in stone, sediment, and subtle whispers across time. As we move beyond the recorded history of the pharaohs, we begin to encounter a subtle, often overlooked layer of evidence. Enigmatic clues that hint at knowledge, constructions, or civilizations that may have preceded the familiar timeline of ancient Egypt. These clues appear in scattered fragments, in anomalous artifacts, unusual architectural features, or cryptic inscriptions that resist simple explanation. Unlike the clearly documented work of dynastic Egyptians, this evidence does not form a complete narrative. Instead, it exists as traces, suggestions, and subtle markers that invite reflection, drawing attention to the possibility of a history far more layered than conventional records allow. In the quiet of contemplation, these fragments take on a hypnotic quality, whispering of mysteries that endure beneath the sands of time. One striking example of such enigmatic evidence is the presence of stones and structures that seem out of place or unusually advanced for their era. In some pyramids and temples, archaeologists have noted blocks that are shaped with precision and placed in ways that challenge conventional explanations. Certain stones appear to have been cut with tools or methods not clearly attested in Egyptian records. Some blocks are unusually heavy, while others are interlocked with such accuracy that even modern instruments struggle to replicate the results. These anomalies do not negate the accomplishments of the Egyptians, but suggest the possibility that they either inherited knowledge from earlier builders or developed techniques whose sophistication has been underappreciated in historical accounts. Each anomaly, small yet persistent, creates a quiet tension between the known and the unknown, encouraging exploration and curiosity without ever demanding immediate answers. Artifacts also contribute to this mysterious puzzle. Objects discovered in and around pyramid complexes sometimes display symbols, shapes, or patterns that do not fit neatly into the Egyptian chronology. While mainstream archaeology often interprets these artifacts as decorative, ceremonial, or symbolic, some researchers argue that they may carry traces of knowledge or understanding that originated before the dynastic period. These objects, carefully studied, can reveal hints of mathematical understanding, astronomical observation, or engineering insight that appear advanced relative to the tools and technology traditionally attributed to the period. They are subtle, almost imperceptible markers of ingenuity, suggesting that the timeline of human knowledge may be deeper and more complex than previously thought. Even the architectural design of certain pyramids and monuments raises questions. While Egyptian construction techniques are well documented, there are occasional features that defy easy categorization. Some passageways, chambers, or alignments appear anomalous, suggesting an understanding of geometry, physics, or celestial patterns that is difficult to reconcile entirely with what we know about the era. Scholars debate whether these features represent isolated brilliance, experimental designs, or remnants of knowledge passed down from earlier civilizations. In any case, the effect is profound. These structures, silent and immovable, act as reminders that human innovation does not always follow a simple, linear path. Sometimes it skips generations, leaving gaps that encourage curiosity and contemplation, especially when observed in the calm stillness of the desert landscape. Another layer of enigmatic evidence emerges in the form of historical accounts from neighboring regions and later civilizations. Greek historians, for example, recorded stories of pyramids and structures that predated their own era, often attributing their creation to mystical or semi-divine beings. While these accounts are sometimes dismissed as myth or exaggeration, their recurrence across cultures and centuries suggests that the pyramids' origins were mysterious even to those living hundreds or thousands of years later. Similarly, inscriptions and documents from Mesopotamia, Nubia, and other ancient societies occasionally reference knowledge of Egypt's monuments or structures that appear older than the historical timeline supports. These scattered references contribute to a sense of continuity, hinting at interactions, migrations, or shared knowledge that may have existed long before the pharaohs established their dynasties. Natural formations, too, play a curious role in this narrative. Some stones within the pyramids exhibit characteristics that suggest they were quarried or shaped using methods that are still debated today. Microabrasions, perfectly flat surfaces, and unusual patterns of wear suggest that precision cutting or polishing methods may have been used, techniques that remain difficult to reproduce with conventional tools of the era. While it is tempting to dismiss these features as coincidental, their repetition across multiple sites hints at a systematic approach, one that could imply prior experience, experimentation, or even a lineage of builders whose knowledge predated the Egyptian record. Each anomaly is like a whisper from the past, subtle yet persistent, urging the observer to consider what might have existed before the well-known history began. The convergence of these clues, anomalous stones, unusual artifacts, cryptic inscriptions, and recurring historical references, creates a framework that is both compelling and elusive. They do not provide direct proof of a lost civilization, nor do they offer a detailed narrative of who might have come before the Egyptians. Instead, they exist in a quiet, almost meditative space, inviting contemplation. In this space, the mind is free to explore the possibilities, imagining civilizations whose achievements were lost to time, whose knowledge was absorbed, repurposed, or obscured by succeeding societies. This delicate balance between evidence and speculation allows us to approach history with both reverence for what is known and openness to what might still be discovered, creating a reflective, immersive experience. Even the physical placement of the pyramids themselves hints at this deeper layer of mystery. The Giza Plateau, with its alignment to cardinal points and its relationship to surrounding landscapes, suggests planning and observation beyond the immediate needs of the Egyptian dynasties. Some researchers propose that the site may have been chosen because it aligned with pre-existing knowledge, perhaps even older structures or natural features that held significance for earlier civilizations. Whether this is coincidence, inherited knowledge, or deliberate choice, the effect is mesmerizing. It reinforces the idea that history is not merely a series of discrete events, but a continuum where knowledge, skill, and cultural significance flow across generations, sometimes leaving traces that endure long after the originators have vanished. As we examine these clues, it is important to maintain a gentle, reflective approach. The evidence is subtle, and the stories it suggests are delicate threads that must be followed slowly and carefully. Rushing to conclusions would diminish the meditative quality of the exploration, which is as much about experiencing wonder as it is about solving puzzles. By observing anomalies, artifacts, and textual fragments with patience, we allow the imagination to move alongside history, considering possibilities without being forced to commit to a single explanation. This approach is especially suited to a sleep-friendly, immersive narrative where curiosity and contemplation are nurtured rather than exhausted. Ultimately, these enigmatic clues do not provide definitive answers, but they offer something equally valuable: the invitation to reflect, imagine, and explore the depths of human history. They suggest that the pyramids, magnificent as they are, may be more than the achievements of a single civilization. They may be the culmination of knowledge passed through generations, influenced by forces and peoples now lost to time. They exist in the intersection of fact and mystery, inviting us to observe not only what is visible, but also what is hidden, the silent currents of knowledge and skill that flow beneath the surface of recorded history. In this way, the pyramids serve as both monuments and mirrors, reflecting human ingenuity while hinting at mysteries that continue to endure, quietly waiting for those who listen carefully. As we trace the thread of enigmatic evidence from the pyramids, it becomes increasingly clear that similar mysteries are scattered across the globe. Monuments and structures, many of them ancient and massive, appear in disparate locations, sharing a precision and sophistication that often exceeds what would be expected from their respective eras. From South America to Asia, from the islands of the Pacific to the heart of Europe, the Earth seems dotted with architectural puzzles that hint at civilizations whose knowledge or influence may have extended far beyond the reach of what is commonly recorded. These sites, while separated by continents and cultures, share a common thread. They are enduring testaments to human ingenuity and, simultaneously, invitations to wonder at the unknown. Consider, for instance, the pyramids of Mesoamerica. The Maya and Aztec civilizations built stepped pyramids that were not only monumental, but also aligned with astronomical phenomena. The precision of these alignments suggests a sophisticated understanding of the heavens, comparable in some ways to the Egyptian pyramids. The structures were often constructed from massive stone blocks, carefully cut and positioned, forming geometric patterns that continue to impress modern architects and engineers. Some pyramids in Central America were built on foundations that appear to have been leveled with extraordinary accuracy, and certain ceremonial chambers align with solstices, equinoxes, or significant star constellations. These architectural feats, created thousands of miles from Egypt and centuries later, raise the question of whether knowledge of construction, geometry, and astronomy might have been transmitted across time, or whether different civilizations independently arrived at remarkably similar solutions. In South America, the megalithic walls of Sacsayhuaman near Cusco, Peru, present another enigma. The stones, some weighing over 100 tons, fit together with astonishing precision, without the use of mortar. Even today, it is difficult to slide a knife blade between the blocks. The techniques used to transport and shape these enormous stones remain a subject of debate among scholars. The irregular polygonal shapes of the stones, combined with their exacting fit, suggest a mastery of engineering that is difficult to explain through simple trial and error. While the culture responsible for this construction was undoubtedly capable and sophisticated, the level of precision, combined with the apparent alignment of some walls with astronomical events, evokes questions similar to those surrounding the pyramids of Egypt. Could these achievements be entirely independent, or might they hint at shared knowledge, distant inspiration, or even forgotten civilizations whose influence stretched far and wide? Moving eastward, the stone circles of Stonehenge in England continue to captivate both scholars and dreamers alike. Here, massive stones, some brought from locations over 100 miles away, are arranged in a pattern that aligns with the rising and setting sun during solstices. The precision of these alignments suggests careful observation of celestial cycles and an understanding of the movements of the heavens. While the scale is smaller than that of the pyramids, the intentionality and sophistication are striking. Archaeologists have debated the purpose of Stonehenge for centuries, proposing everything from ceremonial site to astronomical observatory. Yet despite the extensive study, the exact methods of construction and the full scope of its significance remain elusive, adding to the sense that human history is richer, more complex, and more mysterious than the written record alone can convey. In the Far East, the ancient terraces and stone walls of places such as Machu Picchu in Peru, or the more distant megalithic sites of Japan and Southeast Asia, further underscore this global pattern of enigmatic construction. Each of these sites demonstrates an understanding of materials, landscape, and sometimes celestial observation that exceeds what might be expected from the tools and techniques traditionally attributed to the time of their construction. The terraces, cut into mountainsides with remarkable precision, show knowledge of drainage, erosion control, and structural stability. Many of these structures continue to stand, resilient against earthquakes, floods, and centuries of natural wear, suggesting that the builders possessed an advanced understanding of engineering principles, potentially passed down through generations or inherited from even earlier civilizations. Even isolated islands hold mysteries. The Moai statues of Easter Island, carved from volcanic rock and transported across great distances, present questions of logistics, physics, and cultural intention. These statues, some towering over 30 feet and weighing multiple tons, were moved using techniques that remain partially speculative. The precision of carving, combined with the careful placement and orientation of the statues, implies planning, coordination, and knowledge of materials that would be impressive by any standard. Some researchers have speculated that knowledge of these methods may have been preserved across generations through oral traditions, lost technological techniques, or even contact with earlier peoples whose civilizations are now forgotten. Each Moai, silent and immovable, resonates with the sense of human ambition and ingenuity, echoing similar mysteries found in the pyramids of Egypt and beyond. Across continents, the similarities between these structures are striking. While they differ in style, material, and cultural context, they share common elements: precise stonework, alignment with celestial phenomena, large-scale organization, and enduring stability. Such parallels raise intriguing questions. Are these coincidences products of independent ingenuity arising in different parts of the world? Or could there have been networks of knowledge, trade, or cultural transmission that spanned vast distances, now obscured by time? Some researchers propose the tantalizing possibility of a lost knowledge or forgotten civilizations whose influence subtly persisted across the globe, leaving traces in monuments, construction techniques, and astronomical alignments. These ideas remain speculative, yet the presence of similar mysteries on multiple continents lends them an air of plausibility that quietly engages the imagination. The psychological impact of encountering these structures cannot be understated. When one stands before a massive pyramid, a megalithic wall, or a perfectly aligned stone circle, there's a sense of connection with something larger than the individual, a continuum of human ingenuity stretching across time and space. The similarities in construction, scale, and celestial alignment create a resonance that is both humbling and mesmerizing, reminding us that human ambition, creativity, and curiosity have always sought to touch the heavens, to impose order on chaos, and to leave traces that endure far beyond individual lifespans. These structures, silent yet eloquent, invite reflection on the mysteries of our collective past, offering a quiet thrill to those who contemplate the possibilities of lost civilizations or shared knowledge. Even more compelling is the subtle sense that these global enigmas may be interconnected, not through direct contact, but through recurring patterns of human thought, observation, and innovation. Perhaps the desire to align structures with the heavens, to work stone with precision, and to build enduring monuments arises naturally whenever human intelligence confronts both landscape and sky. Yet the consistency of certain features across distant sites, the focus on astronomical alignment, the careful selection and shaping of stones, the monumental scale, suggests more than mere coincidence. It implies a shared understanding, a common thread of curiosity, ingenuity, and aspiration that transcends individual cultures and epochs. As we reflect on these mysterious structures, a subtle narrative begins to emerge. The world, it seems, is sprinkled with evidence of human ambition, creativity, and technical skill that occasionally transcends what is documented in historical records. Each site, from the pyramids of Giza to the Moai of Easter Island, adds a layer to the story, reminding us that the known civilizations are only part of a broader, more intricate tapestry. These monuments invite the mind to wander across time and space, To imagine societies whose names have been lost, whose knowledge has faded, and whose influence may still resonate in the stones that endure. In the calm of this reflection, the significance of the pyramids becomes even more profound. They are not isolated wonders. They are part of a global chorus of human ingenuity and mystery, echoing in the mountains, deserts, and plains across continents. Each structure, perfectly aligned, carefully crafted, and enduring through centuries, speaks to a continuity of knowledge, skill, and ambition. The resonance of these global enigmas quietly reinforces the possibility that human history is far deeper, more complex, and more intertwined than conventional narratives suggest, hinting at civilizations or wisdom that may have preceded what we currently understand. Among the most captivating elements of the pyramids and other ancient structures are the technological mysteries that remain unresolved to this day. Despite centuries of study, modern scholars and engineers continue to grapple with questions about how these monuments were constructed with such precision and durability. The size of the stones, the accuracy of their placement, and the sophistication of their design suggest knowledge and skills that surpass what might be expected from the tools and techniques attributed to the era. Each layer of stone, each carefully aligned passage, and each perfectly cut block hints at methods that are only partially understood, leaving a quiet, persistent sense of wonder that draws the imagination across time. The transportation of massive stones, for instance, remains one of the most perplexing challenges. Some blocks weigh tens of tons, and yet they were moved from quarries located hundreds of miles away, over terrain that was often rugged and unforgiving. Scholars have proposed a range of possibilities. Wooden sledges lubricated with water to reduce friction, rolling logs, or even the use of canals to float the stones closer to construction sites. Experimental archaeology has demonstrated that some of these methods could have been effective, yet the sheer scale and efficiency required to build the Great Pyramid in the estimated time frame remains remarkable. Each theory sheds light on potential techniques, yet none fully captures the combination of speed, precision, and organization evident in the finished monuments, leaving a lingering sense that something is still missing from the story. Cutting and shaping the stones presents an equally compelling puzzle. Granite, basalt, and other hard stones used in pyramid chambers and walls resist cutting with the simple copper chisels traditionally attributed to the Egyptians. Some blocks show perfectly flat surfaces and exact angles, suggesting that advanced techniques, possibly involving abrasives, leverage, or knowledge of stone mechanics, were employed. In some cases, modern engineers attempting to replicate the precision find it extraordinarily difficult, even with modern tools. The question arises, did the builders possess specialized knowledge now lost to time, or were they guided by a combination of practical experimentation and inherited wisdom from earlier generations? These uncertainties do not diminish the achievements of the Egyptians. Rather, they deepen the mystery, revealing the pyramids as monuments not only of labor, but of intelligence, observation, and perhaps forgotten innovation. Inside the pyramids, further mysteries emerge. The passageways, chambers, and ventilation shafts were designed with extraordinary precision, some aligned to specific stars or celestial events. The internal architecture suggests a dual purpose: functional stability and symbolic or astronomical significance. The Grand Gallery of the Great Pyramid, with its steeply rising corridor and perfectly proportioned corbelled walls, remains a marvel of engineering. Scholars debate how the massive granite beams above the king's chamber were lifted into place, considering that the tools and machinery available at the time would have made this an incredibly difficult task. The precision and care evident in these constructions hint at a level of technical understanding and planning that continues to fascinate both scientists and lay observers alike. Some theorists propose that the builders may have employed principles of geometry, physics, or even sound and vibration that are only now being explored through modern science. The concept of using levers, counterweights, inclined planes, and precise measurement tools is well documented. But some anomalies, such as the exact fit of massive stones or the alignment of chambers to celestial bodies, suggests that additional, more advanced techniques might have been involved. These possibilities open a quiet, contemplative space in which to imagine the minds of those ancient engineers who worked without written blueprints, relying on skill, observation, and perhaps techniques passed down through generations that are now lost to the pages of history. The use of mathematics in construction adds yet another layer of intrigue. Proportions, angles, and ratios observed in the pyramids indicate knowledge of basic and perhaps advanced mathematical concepts, from simple measurement to an understanding of pi, the golden ratio, or other geometric principles. While some of these patterns may be coincidental, the repetition across different structures and civilizations suggests intentional design and careful planning. The builders appear to have possessed not only practical skill, but also an intuitive or formal understanding of abstract concepts, applied in a way that ensured structural integrity and aesthetic harmony. This blending of science, observation, and art reflects a sophisticated mind at work, one that challenges modern assumptions about the technological capabilities of ancient societies. Another layer of technological mystery lies in the precision of interlocking stones. Certain blocks fit together so tightly that even modern instruments struggle to measure the gap. Some interior granite blocks weigh several tons, yet they are placed with a level of precision that would be difficult to replicate today. Scholars have suggested techniques ranging from the use of templates to advanced knowledge of force distribution, yet the exact methods remain speculative. The subtlety and consistency of these placements, repeated across multiple pyramids and other megalithic sites worldwide, suggest that the builders possessed not only the ability to move enormous stones, but also a deep understanding of structural engineering principles that enabled the monuments to endure for millennia. Even tools themselves leave questions. While copper chisels, wooden mallets, and stone hammers are well documented in Egyptian archaeology, their efficiency for shaping hard granite or massive limestone blocks is questionable. Some evidence suggests the use of abrasives, such as sand or powdered stone, but the uniformity of certain cuts and the precision of angles still challenge conventional explanations. Could there have been specialized tools or techniques that have been lost to time? Were there methods of stone working that were taught orally, preserved in guilds or workshops, and then forgotten over generations? The absence of definitive answers contributes to the quiet awe these monuments inspire, emphasizing that even with our modern understanding, some aspects of ancient technology remain elusive. Ultimately, these technological mysteries remind us that human ingenuity is often underestimated when viewed through a narrow historical lens. The pyramids and similar megalithic structures around the world were not the product of mere labor. They were achievements of observation, experimentation, and intelligence. They required a combination of physical skill, careful planning, and perhaps knowledge or techniques inherited from earlier builders. Each stone, each passage, and each alignment represents not only effort but understanding, a testament to minds capable of transforming raw material into enduring, precise, and awe-inspiring monuments. The allure of these mysteries lies not only in what we do know, but in what remains unexplained. They invite reflection, imagination, and a quiet curiosity that drifts gently across centuries. They remind us that history is both a record of achievements and a space for contemplation, where the unknown invites engagement as much as the known provides understanding. The technological puzzles of the pyramids create a meditative rhythm, one that encourages the mind to wander slowly through questions, marvels, and possibilities, allowing wonder to coexist with knowledge in a calm, immersive exploration of the past. In the stillness of this reflection, we are reminded that the pyramids are more than monuments of stone. They are repositories of skill, intelligence, and enduring mystery. They speak to human ambition, creativity, and the desire to understand and shape the world. They also hint at what might have been lost to time, techniques, tools, or knowledge that existed before the dynasties, influencing constructions in ways that remain largely hidden. By contemplating these technological mysteries, we step into the quiet space between certainty and possibility, where history, curiosity, and imagination converge. It is in this space that the pyramids continue to captivate, inspiring awe and reflection, inviting us to drift gently into the vast landscape of ancient wonder. Across the ancient landscape of Egypt, long before modern scholars debated dates and dynasties, the people who lived among the monuments had their own stories about who built them. Their voices, faint as wind moving over stone, left behind fragments, inscriptions, legends, temple carvings, and ritual texts that provide an entirely different perspective from the timelines reconstructed today. These ancient narratives do not speak in the language of carbon dating or archaeological layers. Instead, they describe the past through memory, mythology, and reverence for ages so distant that even the Egyptians themselves seemed unsure where their history truly began. Some of the earliest writings reference a mysterious time known as Zep Tepi, often translated as the first time. According to Egyptian tradition, this was an age when gods walked the earth, bringing order to chaos and shaping the world before the dawn of human kingdoms. In these stories, the great builders were not men, but divine beings, figures of immense wisdom who bestowed knowledge upon humanity. For priests and scribes, Zep Tepi was not merely a symbolic era. It represented a golden age so remote that it blurred the boundaries between the physical and the mythical, an era that seemed to precede even the earliest known pharaohs by thousands of years. In temple texts recorded during the New Kingdom, long after the pyramids had already stood for millennia, there are mentions of rulers who reigned before the dynasties recognized today. These lists speak of Shem-Sahor, the followers of Horus, described as semi-divine kings who ruled Egypt long before the first dynasty. The texts offer no architectural details and no clear explanation of what they built, but their presence in Egypt's own recorded memory introduces gentle uncertainty. If the Egyptians believe their civilization arose from an older, almost forgotten lineage, could the structures we consider early Egyptian have roots that extend further back than modern historians assume? Even the pyramid texts, some of the oldest religious writings in existence, suggest a reverence for knowledge inherited rather than invented. They speak of rituals passed down from remote antiquity, as though the pyramids were part of a tradition older than the kings who commissioned them. The pharaohs of the Old Kingdom often describe themselves not as innovators, but as restorers of ancient practices. Their inscriptions sound more like conversations with the past than declarations of new achievements. In this gentle tension between pride and humility lies a subtle clue. The Egyptians may have viewed their monuments as expressions of a wisdom not wholly their own. There are also legends preserved in classical Greek accounts, written by historians such as Herodotus and Diodorus Siculus, who traveled through Egypt while the country was still covered with temples, inscriptions, and ancient priests who guarded fading memories. Though these accounts are often embellished, they record stories told by Egyptians themselves, stories in which the Sphinx is older than any king whose name we know, and in which the pyramids are attributed to ages of turmoil, floods, or forgotten rulers whose names were lost to time. The accuracy of these stories is uncertain, but their persistence reveals something important. Even the people living closest to these monuments were not entirely sure who built them first. Over time, Egyptian culture developed a poetic habit of attributing great works to earlier eras. When later pharaohs restored temples or repaired damage caused by centuries of weathering, they often described their actions as returning something to its former glory. In doing so, they hinted that many structures already seemed ancient, even during the height of their own civilization. If these rulers, supported by fleets of workers and powerful priesthoods, looked upon the pyramids with awe and not familiarity, it raises gentle questions about just how deep the layers of Egypt's past might go. These ancient voices do not make direct claims about unknown civilizations or forgotten advanced builders. They do not provide blueprints or detailed accounts. What they give us instead is atmosphere, a sense of profound antiquity, a feeling that the past was much longer and more complicated than the boundaries outlined by modern textbooks. They show us that even thousands of years ago, the Egyptians themselves sensed that they were inheritors of something older than memory, older than writing, older than the kingdom they called eternal. And so, when we sift through these stories, we're not looking for literal evidence, but listening for echoes. Myths, after all, often contain shadows of real events filtered through generations of retelling. The ancient Egyptians may not have known exactly who built the earliest monuments or when, but their writings suggest that they believed they were part of a civilization built upon an even older foundation, one whose traces had already begun to fade when the first pharaoh took the throne. These soft, ambiguous whispers from the past invite us to consider the possibility that history is not a straight line, but a tapestry, woven with threads of truth, memory, legend, and wonder. They urge us to approach the mysteries of the pyramids not only with scientific curiosity, but with the humility to accept that ancient people were often closer to forgotten chapters than we are today. In their voices, preserved across millennia, we find a gentle reminder. The stones of Egypt may tell one story, but the stories told by the ancients hint at another, one that lies just beyond certainty, waiting patiently in the silence of time. Beneath the sun-baked plateau of Giza lies a world often overlooked, a subterranean realm where shadows stretch longer than the light above. To walk across the smooth stones of the pyramid's base is to traverse only the surface of a story whose deepest chapters remain hidden. For centuries, archaeologists and explorers have focused on the grandeur of the pyramids, marveling at their perfect angles and colossal blocks. Yet below ground, within chambers carved into limestone and hidden beneath layers of sand and rubble, a quieter, more enigmatic history waits, its secrets preserved in silence. It is here, in the dark veins of the earth, that some of the most compelling mysteries of the pyramids reside. The underground network beneath the Great Pyramid of Khufu is more than a single chamber. It is a labyrinth of corridors, unfinished rooms, and enigmatic spaces whose purposes are still debated. The descending passage, carved deep into the bedrock, leads to a subterranean chamber that has never been fully understood. Unlike the polished upper chambers, the walls here are rough-hewn, their surfaces bearing marks that suggest construction plans that were abandoned, altered, or perhaps forgotten. The contrast between the precise, sunlit king's chamber above and the shadowed, irregular corridors below create a sense of duality. The visible accomplishments of human hands versus the hidden processes that remain a mystery. Explorers who have ventured into these chambers often speak of an almost tangible silence, a weight of time that seems to press against the walls themselves. Dust motes drift lazily in the narrow beams of light from lanterns, and every footstep echoes like a heartbeat through the stone corridors. In some places, natural fractures in the limestone add to the sense that these chambers are older than the pyramid above them. Some geologists have even suggested that water erosion, visible in certain areas, may predate the construction of Khufu's pyramid, hinting that the builders may have repurposed existing spaces or worked with geological formations far older than any human memory of the Old Kingdom. The subterranean spaces also contain mysterious shafts and tunnels whose functions remain elusive. The so-called air shafts in the Great Pyramid's upper chambers have inspired theories ranging from astronomical alignment to ceremonial purposes. Yet beneath, in the lower chambers and the unfinished pit-like rooms, there are additional passages that seem to serve no clear purpose. Some are blocked, others slope unexpectedly, and a few end abruptly in solid rock. These features challenge the conventional understanding of pyramid construction as a strictly linear, organized process. Instead, they hint at a more layered story, a design that may have evolved over generations or even centuries, long before Khufu's reign. Archaeologists have discovered traces of tool marks in these hidden spaces that suggest methods of carving that remain partly mysterious. While copper chisels and dolerite pounding stones are known to have been used in the Old Kingdom, certain marks in the subterranean chambers are inconsistent with these known tools. Some theorists argue that these anomalies could indicate a technology lost to time, or even construction efforts undertaken by a people whose techniques were unfamiliar to the Egyptians who later completed the pyramids. The stones themselves, massive and precise, seem to invite more questions than answers, their weight and placement challenging our understanding of early engineering. Another layer of mystery comes from the relative lack of decoration in the underground spaces. The upper chambers and pyramid temples are adorned with inscriptions, carvings, and ritual objects, yet the chambers below are stark and unmarked. Some interpret this as evidence of sacred secrecy, a deliberate choice to keep certain knowledge hidden from the living. Others see it as a sign of incompleteness, a project begun but never finished, abandoned to time for reasons unknown. In either case, the emptiness has an almost meditative quality, encouraging visitors to imagine what might have occurred here before recorded history began. The sense of time in these chambers is difficult to measure. While above-ground structures can be dated through inscriptions and historical records, the underground spaces resist precise timelines. Their existence suggests a layering of human activity, perhaps over many generations. One can imagine workers, long forgotten, chiseling stone in candlelight or by slivers of sunlight entering narrow shafts, their labors obscured by centuries of sand and silence. The spaces may have been used, altered, or adapted repeatedly, each era leaving only subtle traces for us to decipher, as if the stones themselves are memories waiting for attentive ears to hear. The underground chambers also echo wider mysteries found elsewhere in Egypt. At Saqqara, Dashur, and other ancient sites, subterranean tombs and tunnels share a similar pattern. Unfinished rooms, shifting passageways, and evidence of human hands interacting with a landscape that may have already been shaped by earlier builders. These global and regional parallels raise subtle questions about the nature of ancient construction. How much of what we see above ground is the culmination of one civilization, and how much is the continuation or adaptation of older, partially forgotten works? In this sense, the hidden chambers beneath Giza become a bridge, connecting the visible accomplishments of known history with the deeper, quieter layers that may stretch into a more distant past. Exploration of these underground spaces has also been constrained by the limits of human technology. Narrow passages, low ceilings, and unstable floors make detailed surveys difficult. Even with modern tools like ground-penetrating radar and remote cameras, the full extent of what lies beneath remains uncertain. This very uncertainty adds to their allure, allowing the mind to wander through possibilities. Chambers older than recorded history, spaces used by builders whose names were lost, or perhaps areas shaped by forces that predate human activity altogether. The desert above, bright and sunlit, conceals a labyrinth beneath, one that seems to exist outside of time itself. In considering the subterranean mysteries of the pyramids, it becomes clear that these spaces are not merely architectural curiosities. They are portals into the unknown, whispers of a past that may extend far beyond the reigns of any known pharaoh. The rough-hewn walls, the abrupt dead ends, the silent chambers, all of it invites reflection on the layers of human ambition, adaptation, and perhaps forgotten knowledge. To wander through these spaces, whether physically or in imagination, is to engage with the echoes of an ancient world that still hums beneath the surface, quietly resisting the finality of written history. These hidden chambers remind us that the story of the pyramids is not only written in visible stone above ground, but also carved in shadow below. They encourage a form of listening, a slowing down, as though by quiet attention we might sense the hands that shaped them, the generations that passed through them, and the ages that predated them. In their silence, the underground corridors hold a subtle, poetic truth. History is layered, and mystery is often preserved where human eyes rarely see. The subterranean pyramid, in its dark calm, teaches patience, humility, and a reverence for time itself, inviting us to explore not just the stones but the spaces between them, where the past whispers softly to anyone willing to listen. Across the globe, ancient stone monuments rise in patterns that seem to echo one another, as though distant cultures, separated by thousands of miles and centuries, were whispering in the same architectural language. From the deserts of Egypt to the highlands of South America, massive stones arranged with uncanny precision hint at knowledge that transcends individual civilizations. The pyramids of Giza, with their perfect angles and celestial alignments, find distant cousins in places like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, Pumapunku in Bolivia, and Gunung Padang in Indonesia. Though separated by oceans and epochs, these sites share a remarkable trait: the skillful manipulation of enormous stone blocks, often in ways that challenge our understanding of early technology. Göbekli Tepe, predating even the oldest Egyptian pyramids, rises from the Anatolian hills like a forgotten cathedral of stone. Its massive pillars are decorated with carvings of animals and abstract symbols, arranged in circles that suggest ritualistic or astronomical purposes. There are no records of large urban settlements nearby, yet the stones are so precisely placed that some researchers wonder how a hunter-gatherer society could have accomplished such feats. The echoes between Göbekli Tepe and Egypt are subtle but compelling. Both reveal advanced planning, a sense of ritual significance, and a mastery over stone that seems to precede recorded civilization. Half a world away, in the high plains of Bolivia, Pumapunku presents a puzzle equally confounding. Its giant megalithic stones are cut with such precision that they fit together with joints so exact that even a knife blade cannot slide between them. Modern engineers struggle to replicate this work without modern machinery. The stones are heavy, some weighing hundreds of tons, and yet they were moved, shaped, and aligned thousands of years ago. The precision of Pumapunku resonates in the mind like a silent chord when compared with the Great Pyramid, vast, exact, and built with an understanding of geometry that seems almost impossible for its time. Further east, the terraces of Gunung Padang in Indonesia add another layer to the puzzle. Archaeological studies suggest that its foundation may be older than conventional timelines allow, with structures buried beneath volcanic layers that could date back many millennia. The site is composed of massive basalt columns arranged in terraces, each layer carefully leveled, forming a pattern that recalls some of the subtle geometric planning seen at Giza. Like the pyramids, the site reflects not only human ingenuity, but also a relationship with the land itself, a way of shaping stone into enduring forms while acknowledging natural forces. When these global sites are considered together, a pattern begins to emerge. Human cultures, even when isolated, repeatedly return to the idea of monumental construction as a way of expressing permanence, knowledge, and connection to the cosmos. The similarities are not merely structural, they are philosophical. In Egypt, the pyramids align with the stars. In Pumapunku and Gunung Padang, the stones demonstrate precise angles and interlocking methods that imply deep understanding of geometry. In Göbekli Tepe, the circular arrangement of pillars suggests astronomical observation. Across continents, stone is transformed into language, and yet the meaning of that language is partially lost to time, leaving us with a tantalizing sense of familiarity mixed with mystery. One of the most intriguing aspects of these parallels is the question of knowledge transfer. Did ancient civilizations learn from one another, passing ideas across oceans and mountains long before the advent of modern navigation? Or is there a more profound explanation, a convergent evolution of human creativity, where societies independently developed similar solutions to universal challenges? The evidence is tantalizing but incomplete. Patterns of stonework, orientation, and alignment suggest awareness of principles that were remarkably consistent, yet no direct records exist to explain the connections. This uncertainty deepens the mystery, allowing the mind to wander through possibilities while keeping the narrative calm and reflective. The notion of a lost, shared memory resonates softly here. Myths from different parts of the world often describe a distant, almost forgotten age, an era when gods or advanced beings walked the earth and taught humanity the secrets of construction, astronomy, and ritual. Could these stories reflect a collective remembrance of a time when knowledge was more widespread, before the rise and fall of empires obscured the continuity of human achievement? The parallels between the pyramids and other megalithic sites invite the listener to imagine a world in which civilizations, now forgotten, once understood principles we are only beginning to rediscover. Yet, even as we marvel at these connections, it is important to maintain a gentle balance between speculation and observation. The similarities are undeniable in some ways, subtle in others. A step pyramid in Egypt may resemble a terraced hill in Indonesia, yet the techniques and cultural context differ. Carvings may echo patterns seen elsewhere, but each civilization expresses its worldview uniquely. The task, then, is not to force a single explanation, but to allow the patterns themselves to inspire curiosity. They are invitations to consider the vast timeline of human ingenuity and to reflect on the mysteries embedded in stone, waiting patiently for attentive minds. The desert winds of Giza, the Anatolian hills, the Bolivian plains, and the Indonesian terraces all share a silent witness to human endeavor. Walking among these stones, whether in person or in imagination, fosters a sense of timelessness. The stones themselves have survived cataclysms, climate shifts, and human neglect, standing as testaments to skill and perseverance. Their endurance hints at knowledge that may have transcended a single generation, perhaps even predating what we typically consider the dawn of organized civilization. Each site offers a fragment of a larger story, a story written not in words but in geometry, orientation, and the very act of shaping the earth. The sands of Egypt, shifting slowly under the weight of time, hold whispers that even the most diligent archaeologists cannot fully capture. Beyond the stones and chambers, beyond the inscriptions and hieroglyphs, there exists a layer of subtle signals, traces left not by rulers or priests, but by the hands of unknown builders whose names have been erased from history. These traces are not always obvious. They emerge in the alignment of the pyramids to celestial points, in subtle anomalies in the stonework, and in architectural choices that seem at odds with the technologies attributed to the Old Kingdom. The deeper we look, the more we encounter a quiet suggestion that the story of the pyramids may be longer and more complex than the conventional timeline allows. One intriguing aspect lies in the astronomical precision of the structures. The Great Pyramid of Khufu is aligned almost perfectly to the cardinal points, a feat that requires careful observation of the stars and a refined understanding of geometry. While some attribute this knowledge to the Egyptians themselves, others note that similar precision in alignment appears in ancient sites elsewhere, often predating known civilizations. Could it be that the Egyptians inherited knowledge that was already centuries or millennia old, passed down in ritual, memory, or perhaps even forgotten manuals of practice? The stars themselves seem to act as a silent record, a cosmic ledger hinting at ideas that extend beyond the known past. Further evidence emerges when considering the construction techniques. Certain marks on the stones, irregularities in quarrying patterns, and anomalies in the placement of massive blocks do not always match the conventional understanding of Old Kingdom tools. Copper chisels and dolerite hammers were indeed used, but some measurements suggest that the level of precision achieved might have required techniques that are not fully explained by these tools alone. Could these marks point to methods developed by an earlier civilization, whose knowledge was absorbed and adapted by the Egyptians? The suggestion is subtle, almost imperceptible, but it invites a slow, thoughtful examination of the monuments with an open mind. Oral traditions and mythology add another layer to this quiet puzzle. The Egyptians themselves spoke of times before the dynasties, eras when gods and semi-divine rulers walked the earth. Stories of Zep-Tepi, the first time, describe a world already ordered and civilized before the reign of known pharaohs. These narratives are not historical documents in the conventional sense, but they function as a form of memory, encoded, symbolic, and persistent across centuries. When combined with the anomalies in construction and celestial alignment, these myths gently suggest that the pyramids may sit atop a foundation built in epochs prior to the recorded history of Egypt. Some researchers point to the underground chambers and subterranean passages as further evidence of deeper histories. These spaces, rough and unfinished, differ markedly from the polished upper chambers, hinting at construction sequences that may predate the conventional timeline of pyramid building. The very act of leaving some spaces rough and incomplete suggests a layering of knowledge and effort, perhaps spanning multiple generations or even multiple civilizations. Here, in the darkness beneath the desert, the quiet tension between the known and the unknown is palpable, encouraging reflection on how much of the past has been lost to time. Even the stones themselves seem to carry memory. Geological studies indicate that some blocks were quarried and moved using techniques that remain partially unexplained, and the sourcing of materials hints at complex logistical networks that could have existed before the rise of the Egyptian state. This creates a subtle contrast. Above ground, we see the grandeur of human achievement, while beneath and within, we encounter hints of work begun long before the rulers we associate with these monuments. It is as if the pyramids themselves are monuments, not just to the pharaohs, but to the cumulative wisdom of generations now forgotten. The appeal of these mysteries is not only intellectual, but deeply emotional. There is a quiet poetry in imagining civilizations lost to time, people whose efforts shaped the monuments we revere and whose names will never be recorded. It is a meditation on the continuity of human ingenuity and the ways knowledge can travel across ages, sometimes in ways that leave only shadows behind. In this sense, the pyramids are more than stone. They're vessels of memory, of questions, of silent stories that invite contemplation. The very act of considering unknown builders encourages a patient, reflective engagement with history. Rather than seeking immediate answers, the mind drifts through possibilities. Earlier societies who measured the stars, quarried massive stones, and organized labor with astonishing skill. Knowledge passed through ritual or craftsmanship, lost and partially remembered, a delicate tension between myth and reality, illuminated only by the light of curiosity. In this quiet space, the pyramids are not merely ancient monuments. They are enduring invitations to consider the vast, layered continuum of human achievement, to imagine what has been lost, and to feel the hum of time stretching far beyond recorded memory. As the sun dips low over the horizon, casting long, amber shadows across the Giza Plateau, it is easy to forget that these monuments are not merely relics of a single civilization. They are living echoes of the past, resonating across millennia, inviting us to consider the countless hands that may have shaped them before any recorded history. In the quiet hours when the desert is still and the stones absorb the last warmth of the day, the pyramids seem to breathe, their presence both monumental and intimate, offering a subtle reminder that history is never simply a list of rulers or dates. It is layered, complex, and often astonishingly mysterious. The notion that unknown civilizations could have played a role in the construction of these massive structures challenges our understanding of human history. It forces a pause, a gentle reconsideration of timelines, technology, and the passage of knowledge. The precision of the stones, the astronomical alignments, and the subterranean chambers suggest capabilities that might exceed what we traditionally attribute to the Egyptians of the Old Kingdom. And yet, rather than diminishing the achievements of known civilizations, this perspective adds a profound depth. It honors the ingenuity of those who built, adapted, and completed the pyramids, recognizing that human accomplishment is often cumulative, layered across generations. This reflection becomes more poignant when we consider the interplay of light and shadow, of seen and unseen. The polished upper chambers bask in sunlight, clear and ordered, revealing the artistry and ambition of known history. Below, in the subterranean corridors and rough-hewn pits, shadow dominates, obscuring the origins and purposes of spaces that may predate Pharaoh Khufu. It is in this contrast, the illuminated and the hidden, the recorded and the lost, that the true beauty of the pyramids emerges. They are not only monuments to what we know, but also invitations to explore what remains unknown, gently reminding us of the humility required in the study of history. As we allow our minds to wander through these layers, another dimension emerges, the poetic resonance of time itself. The pyramids endure not because of their visibility or grandeur alone, but because they are shaped by forces beyond the immediate. The sun, the stars, the passage of centuries, and the labor of countless hands. Each stone is a measure of patience, each alignment a testament to observation and careful planning. The possibility that some of this work was initiated by unknown civilizations enriches the narrative, turning every block into a bridge between what is documented and what is lost to memory. In imagining these earlier builders, we enter a space of quiet wonder. Who were they? And how did they organize labor, conceive plans, and manipulate massive stones with a precision that seems almost impossible? Did they leave their mark deliberately, or were they erased by the sweep of time and later dynasties? The questions themselves become meditative, a gentle rhythm guiding the listener through a landscape of curiosity and reflection. In the soft, enveloping silence of night, these inquiries are not pressing demands for answers. They are invitations to drift with thought, to explore history with patience rather than urgency. This reflective approach also encourages a broader understanding of human civilization. Across the world, other sites hint at similar patterns of advanced construction and knowledge. Göbekli Tepe, Pumapunku, Gunung Padang. Each place resonates with a quiet suggestion that humanity's early ingenuity was profound, sometimes forgotten, but never entirely lost. The pyramids, when seen through this lens, are no longer isolated monuments. They are part of a subtle, global conversation about skill, observation, and the passage of knowledge through time. They invite the mind to move slowly, to appreciate connections that may not be immediately apparent, and to rest in the stillness of wonder. There's also a personal dimension to this reflection. In the gentle glow of moonlight over the plateau, or in the imagined stillness of subterranean chambers, one senses a dialogue between past and present. We are, in a way, the inheritors of curiosity, the recipients of questions that have traveled across millennia. The pyramids ask us to engage not only with history as a static record, but with history as a living experience, layered, uncertain, and profoundly human. They remind us that exploration is as much internal as external, a meditation on possibility, on time, and on our place within a continuum that stretches far beyond our own lives. Finally, this contemplation encourages a quiet reverence for mystery itself. The pyramids, with their monumental presence and hidden spaces, do not demand answers. They offer the luxury of imagination. In their silence, we are free to consider that human knowledge is vast, that civilizations may rise and fall, leaving traces that invite reflection, and that the story of the pyramids may be richer, more layered, and more mysterious than any single account can convey. In embracing this perspective, the listener is invited into a state of calm curiosity, where history and mystery coexist, where the unknown is not threatening but gently compelling, and where the sands of time carry whispers of civilizations yet to be fully understood. As night deepens and the stars begin to shimmer above the pyramids, the mind can rest in this layered understanding, that what is seen is remarkable, that what is hidden may be even more profound, and that the pyramids, in their enduring presence, bridge the known and the unknown, the past and the present, in a quiet, meditative rhythm that invites both awe and peace. They are, in every sense, timeless. As we draw near the close of this journey through time, through sand and stone, through the whispers of civilizations long past, it becomes clear that the pyramids are more than monuments. They are enduring questions cast into the world. They rise from the desert with a quiet insistence, reminding us that history is rarely linear, that knowledge is layered, and that human achievement stretches far beyond what is immediately visible. Beneath the grandeur, beneath the polished exteriors and grand chambers, lie the traces of countless hands, perhaps some unknown to history, whose work continues to speak across millennia. The possibility that these builders existed before the recorded Egyptian civilization challenges the very framework through which we have long understood human progress, inviting us to consider a history far broader, far richer, and far more mysterious than textbooks can contain. There is a delicate balance here between the known and the speculative, between what can be measured and what can only be intuited. Archaeology and geology provide us with the facts, the precise angles of the Great Pyramid, the quarrying marks on massive stones, the astronomical alignments etched into the desert landscape. Yet, as compelling as these details are, they hint at stories that may never be fully recoverable. The shadowed gaps between the stones, the unfinished subterranean chambers, the echoes of myth and oral tradition, all suggest a narrative that reaches beyond the dynastic history of Egypt into realms of human experience that are less tangible but no less profound. These quiet spaces of uncertainty, these subtle pauses in the record, are what give the pyramids their deep, resonant mystery. To contemplate the possibility of unknown builders is not to diminish the accomplishments of the Egyptians. Rather, it is to expand our appreciation for the continuity of human creativity. Knowledge, it seems, is rarely invented in isolation. It is passed, transformed, adapted, and sometimes forgotten, only to reappear in forms that surprise even the most learned observers. The pyramids, in this light, are both culmination and inheritance. They are achievements of the Old Kingdom, yes, but they may also carry the fingerprints of earlier hands, whose work was absorbed, refined, and built upon by generations that followed. In every polished block, every celestial alignment, every carefully measured corridor, we glimpse the layering of human effort, patience, and ingenuity across epochs that we can only imagine. The echoes of this layered history are not limited to Egypt. Across the globe, we find monuments that reflect similar ambitions and capacities. The circular pillars of Göbekli Tepe, the interlocking megaliths of Pumapunku, the terraces of Gunung Padang. Each site shares a commonality with the pyramids, a careful manipulation of massive stones, a subtle attention to geometry, a silent dialogue with the heavens. These distant echoes invite a contemplative stance, encouraging the mind to wander slowly, to explore connections without demanding immediate answers. It is a meditation on the universality of human curiosity, on the ways in which distant societies, separated by oceans and mountains, may have independently confronted the same challenges, reaching towards similar solutions in their own distinct cultural languages. There is, too, a humbling dimension to this reflection. To stand, or even to imagine standing, before a pyramid is to encounter something far older, larger, and more enduring than oneself. It is to recognize the scale of time, the resilience of stone, and the fleeting nature of human life in comparison. And yet, in that very recognition, there is comfort. The pyramids endure. Knowledge persists, even when civilizations rise and fall. The questions they pose about technique, purpose, and the potential existence of unknown builders persist as well, inviting each new generation to engage with them, to listen closely, to let curiosity guide contemplation. There's a quiet generosity in this endurance, a sense that the past is always available for reflection, if only we slow down enough to see and feel it. Ultimately, the story of the pyramids, whether wholly created by the Egyptians or partly by civilizations now lost, serves as a meditation on the human capacity for wonder. It reminds us that mystery is not the opposite of understanding, but a companion to it. The gaps in our knowledge are not failures. They're spaces for imagination, for humility, and for awe. To consider that unknown hands may have shaped these stones before the rise of recorded dynasties is to engage with history not as a fixed record, but as a living, breathing tapestry, woven of both certainty and speculation, light and shadow, the known and the unknowable. In this gentle reflection, it becomes clear that the pyramids are more than monuments. They are mirrors. They reflect not only the civilizations that built them, but also the curiosity, patience, and wonder of all who study them, dream about them, and listen to their silent stories. They encourage a stillness of mind, a patient wandering through the layers of time, inviting us to accept the coexistence of fact and mystery.